What's up, y'all? My name is Dan. The US and Mexico is one of the busiest international markets in the world, and that includes a lot of business and leisure demands going both ways. Business travelers, American and Mexican tourists, and people traveling to see their families. A total of 13 airlines offer hundreds of flights between the two countries. The top U.S. airports for flights into Mexico are Los Angeles, Dallas-Fort Worth, and Houston Intercontinental, which is reflected on the amount of flights between these airports and Mexico, as well as the flight frequencies. The largest market from the US in Mexico and the world actually is Cancun, a very popular tourist destination. This is followed by Mexico City, being the capital and main business hub in the country, with the top five airlines flying between the two countries being American Airlines, United Airlines, Volaris, Delta Airlines, and Aeromexico. American Airlines has the largest market share between the two countries, flying a total of around 74 routes, mainly from their hubs in Dallas Fort Worth, Phoenix, Miami, and Charlotte. These mainly carry connecting passengers going to and from Mexico, although they also have quite a few routes from their other hubs, mainly into tourist destinations as well as several point to point routes, with most of them going into leisure markets such as Cancun and Los Cabos. United Airlines is second largest with 52 routes, mainly out of Houston Intercontinental, while others fly out of their other hubs further north, such as Chicago, Newark, or Denver. Most of United's flights carry a large amount of connecting traffic, including their busiest route being Houston to Cancun. The only point to point route United operates is between Cleveland and Cancun. Volaris is the largest Mexican airline that has a lot of direct flights between the two countries, which are a total of 68 routes, mainly out of Volaris hubs in Guadalajara and Mexico City, but also a lot of point to point routes from smaller Mexican cities to the US, mainly from California and Chicago, but also a few destinations in Texas and the US East Coast. Then comes our Mexico and Delta Airlines. They are separate airlines, but they have a joint venture on flights between the two countries that allows passengers to connect at each other's hubs. Our Mexico flies 23 routes, most of which fly out of Mexico City and Guadalajara, though Monterrey flights are set to resume soon. Delta flies 33 routes. They mostly fly out of Atlanta and Detroit, but also there are other hubs such as Salt Lake City, Minneapolis, and Los Angeles. Combined, the two airlines have 53 routes and more market share than American Airlines. Viva Aerobus, another Mexican low-cost airline, has a total of 26 routes, most of them coming out of their hubs in Monterrey and Mexico City, mainly into the state of Texas, especially Houston and San Antonio, but also flies to other US cities. They plan on adding more destinations such as Austin, but unfortunately that growth was stalled because of Mexico's downgrade to Category 2. But they do plan on having a joint venture with Allegiant Air in the near future that would open up new markets for both Viva and Allegiant. Alaska Airlines has a total of 26 routes, much of which come out of Los Angeles, San Francisco, but also from their other hubs in the US West Coast, in Seattle, Portland, San Diego, and San Jose, mainly into tourist destinations in western Mexico like Puerto Vallarta, Los Cabos, but also Cancun. They also have two routes into Guadalajara. They used to fly into Mexico City, but those routes failed and they pulled out of the city. Southwest Airlines has 34 routes between cities all over the US and little leisure destinations of Cancun, Cozumel, Puerto Vallarta, and Los Cabos. They also used to fly into Mexico City, but that didn't go well for them, so they pulled out. Spirit Airlines has 24 routes, most of them going into Cancun from the eastern half of the US, as well as Los Cabos and Puerto Vallarta from Dallas, Houston, and Los Angeles. Although in the past few days they announced two new routes to Monterrey from Houston and Austin, which is very different from Spirit's focus on more leisure markets. At one point they also flew from Houston to Toluca, but they pulled out of that market. Frontier Airlines flies 30 routes, but these are mostly point-to-point routes all over the US to tourist destinations, mainly to Cancun, but also a few to Cozumel, Puerto Vallarta, and Los Cabos. If Frontier and Spirit end up merging like they plan to, the combined airline would have a total of 46 routes with 5 Mexican destinations. JetBlue has 17 routes with mostly flights from the US East Coast into Cancun, as well as a few from the West Coast. They recently added flights to Los Cabos and Puerto Vallarta, and similarly to Alaska and Southwest, JetBlue also terminated their Mexico City flights in January 2020. Sun Country, with 15 routes, mostly flies to leisure destinations from Minneapolis. The other routes they have might seem a bit random, such as the Texas, Milwaukee, and Las Vegas routes, but they seem to be picked especially because of the high seasonal demand that they have. Aromar only has four routes with lower demand, operated by their ATRs, including two from Mexico City into Laredo and McAllen, Texas, as well as Monterrey and Guadalajara to McAllen. That is all the flights between the US and Mexico. But there's also another way that Mexican Airlines connect to the US, and that's via Tijuana Airport, which is located right next to the US border, and passengers can use the cross border express that connects passengers from the airport straight to the US without having to go all the way to the other border crossings. Airlines also don't have to fly into San Diego's airports from Mexico, meaning that airlines can reduce their ticket costs. Mexican Airlines benefit a lot from this, Polaris being the largest beneficiary with 36 domestic destinations all over Mexico from Tijuana. Viva Aerobus also flies there with 10 domestic routes, Aeromexico with 2 routes to their hubs in Mexico City and Guadalajara, and one airline that doesn't fly into the US and isn't well known outside of Mexico, Calafia Airlines, flies 4 routes in northwest Mexico. As y'all can see, the two countries are very well connected with all these flights. Mexico never closed to US travelers or anybody really during the pandemic, so this was beneficial for aviation between the two countries. But Mexico was put on Category 2 by the FAA, so Mexican airlines cannot really increase capacity from what they currently have. At the same time, US airlines can add frequencies, and some, such as Spirit, have been taking advantage of this to add new routes to better compete in the market. Travel between the two countries will keep increasing over time. Mexico will hopefully come out of Category 2. Underserved markets will probably get new routes, while existing ones get more frequencies as aviation keeps growing. I'm excited to see how aviation between the two countries moves forward. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If y'all got any feedback, questions, or any comments, y'all can leave a comment. That's all I've got to say, and I'll see y'all later.